Hi, everyone, and welcome once again to one of our Hobby Memorial Library events. We have very special guests today. We have two of our CTC professors who are also have doctorates, and we kind of sort of want to know what their road was to getting them. I mean, we know how hard school is and working and just life in general. And so we're kind of hoping that our two guests will be very, very inspiring. And we just want to hear their life story. We have with us today Dr. Leighann Temple, and she is a very special professor over at Fort Cavazos. And so I'm going to go ahead and let her tell you her story. Welcome.
Welcome. Hello. Hi. Thank you for having me today. I'm honored to share my story and hopefully motivate and inspire somebody to take a similar journey. Although they're all different, it is similar in many ways. Interestingly, my journey actually started right here at CTC many, many moons ago. I always like to tell my students that moons ago. We won't say how far back, but um, moving to the area, I was a stay-at-home mom. My husband's in the military, or just recently retired, but at the time he was in the military. We had a daughter, and she was in second grade. So I had a little bit of time on my hands when I would drop her off and volunteering. And I just kept driving past this building, and I would see Central Texas College almost on a daily basis. So I said, I need to pick up where I left off with school. Maybe I should pop in and see what they have to offer. And so I came into the building, then Fort Hood, and spoke with an advisor. They got all of my information, did my application, all my paperwork, and said, okay, you're good to go. So typical me, I didn't want to wait until a fall semester started. I needed to start like right then. So the next semester was going to be the second part of summer, so summer 2. And I started taking classes on the main campus. So over here at that time, the classes were all in the evening, and that was mommy time and wife time. So we had a lot of things going on in our household. My daughter had so many activities that she was in. So the evening was out of the question for me, where it was probably most convenient for a lot of people. This schedule didn't work. So I went across the way, and I said, I'm going to take the summer class. And I was really excited about it. I was super fired up. And the first class that I took, believe it or not, was government. And I loved my professor. I had a wonderful professor. He was great. The semester, it was rushed, but it didn't feel like a summer semester, if that's even possible to say. And so I was really excited about it. My husband, very supportive. All of my family was really excited for me, especially my dad. And, he said, the sky's the limit with you. I know that there's nothing that you won't achieve once you put your mind to it. So I was nervous thinking, am I get through an associate's degree? Am I going to be able to make it? And he said, absolutely, honey, you will. And so I just remember taking my first test, and I got a 96. I was just like, oh, wow. Okay, it's an A, but it's not 100. So I called my dad, super excited to tell him, and he said, I'm not surprised at all, honey. He's like, you can do it. You just don't let yourself get in the way. And so I was very thankful for him to tell me those words, because just a few short weeks later, my dad actually passed away. So I lost my dad during the summer semester. So it was hard. I didn't really know what to do. We just had to up and leave. I was taking 2 classes, and so I emailed my professors. Both of them wonderful. Said, don't worry. The coursework will be here when you get back. We'll work with you. Just take care of what you need to take care of. And that was, I was very thankful for that, because that could have essentially derailed, if I decided to go on or not, if I didn't have their support. Wholly supportive of me, was able to come back, take my classes, and I got A's in both of them, right? And so from that moment, I really felt like it was my goal was to not get an associate's, that I'm going to get my bachelor's degree because my dad said I could. I mean, he gave me the faith in myself that I needed, and I wanted to accomplish that goal to make him proud, even though he wasn't here. So military life, military wife, right? I spent 2 years going to school at CTC on the main campus, and working the schedule as heavy as possible because I had catch up work to do, right? I was a little behind and I didn't know how long we would be here. So I wanted to be able to complete my coursework. So my husband was super supportive and he said, you can take classes whenever you want, as many as you want, as long as you are here to take our daughter to school and pick her up from school. Nobody else is going to do that. She's not a walker. You will be here. I said, not a problem. Definitely. So I would drop my kid off at school and run across the street to go to school all day long. And I'd rush back to pick her up. And then it was going to take her to dance for like 4 days a week, volunteering, obviously, with the family readiness groups on Fort Hood with my husband's units and doing all of those things. So super active. And most of the time, and this kind of followed me all the way through even my doctorate. Once they went to bed is when I started to study. So my mom time ended at bedtime and my student time started at bedtime. So I would stay up, usually till about 1 o'clock in the morning, studying, reading, writing notes. And this is back in the day when, I had a laptop, obviously, but I was one that had to handwrite notes and things are just very different then. And so I would just do all of my studying at that time. And in the morning, I'd get up and start all over again. And so that worked. It was wonderful. I had amazing teachers. I had one specific teacher who probably ignited, well, two that ignited the interest in political science. Government was my favorite subject. I was upset I can only take a couple of classes. So, I took everything else and all the professors were wonderful. But those two kind of said, you know what, this is the, discipline that you need to be in. Political science is the way to go. But at that point, I really thought I was going to be a teacher. On my degree plan, which I still have for CTC, they said, bring this with you every time you come to see an advisor. And I have it, and I still refer to it sometimes, so just to look at my grades to make me feel good. But it was interdisciplinary studies because I was going on to be a school teacher. That was what I was really, thinking about. I said it would just be easy. My daughter's in school. We'd have the same schedule. I do like teaching. That's kind of a passion. And then it was like government was my interest, political science. So I thought, well, maybe I'll do middle school or high school so I can teach social studies and those courses. So that's how it started. Definitely not how it ended. So military life, of course, we were here for 2 years and then it was time to pack up and go. And I was just about finished with all of the courses. I think I probably took something like 100 hours here. I'm not even exaggerating, lots of hours. And so I couldn't find a college until I knew where we were going. So that was kind of oh gosh. And of course, we move in the summertime, May, June. And I was like, I already knew it was probably going to be a waste. I wasn't going to be able to get into a bachelor program or college until like January. But luck would have it that we were able to go home. We got stationed in our hometown. And it was easy for me. So at that point, all right, I know it's going to. I submitted my application, did everything, got accepted. And I didn't want to wait until August. Go figure. And so I had a hold on my account because I was a new student, and I had to do A, B, and C. And I didn't want to wait. I was like, I'm wasting the summer away. What can I do? So I called the department chair, political science department. That was my major. And I was like, hey, listen, here's the deal. I just got here, military wife, and I don't want to waste a summer. So can you lift this hold for me so I can take some classes online or in person? Like, what can I do? And she's like, well, what do you want to do? I'm like, I just want to take a class. I don't want to waste the summer. And she's like, okay, I'll lift the hold. So she did. And there wasn't anything I could take face to face, but I was able to get an online class. And so that started and it was great. And so whenever I went to campus, it had a similar feel to CTC. It was kind of a small program, but the professors were awesome and the school was awesome. And life balance was okay at the time because my husband was a recruiter. The same thing, he says, listen, I'm all supportive of you going to school, but don't forget you're a mom. And that always came first. You're the one that takes Lauren to school. You're the one that picks her up from school. Trust nobody. He was just always kind of that way. But I couldn't rely on him because who knew what his schedule was going to be like. And then we actually saw him less as a recruiter than we did when we were on post. He was just busy all the time, early mornings and very late nights. So I said, okay, not a problem. So my school was an hour away, an hour drive from my house. I had to get very creative with scheduling. So I would drop my daughter off at school and immediately head towards campus and prayed that I could find a parking spot so that I could get to class on time because walking in late was not something I was going to do. And, I worked. I did this for, let's see, I got there in 2008, and I graduated in 2010. No, I'm sorry, 2009. It was 2009. So I only had about a year and a half to go. So I did this for, the semesters that I was there, 2 years, almost 2 years. And again, the same thing applied. I would come home, take my daughter to all her activities, less volunteering at this point because we were away from an installation. But, she really took up all of our time. Every single day after school, she had an activity and it was late. By the time we got home, it was homework, dinner time, and bedtime. And so I found myself not getting to study until after 10 o'clock. So I would be up till probably 1 or 2 o'clock again. And it was hard. It was really hard. And sometimes it was challenging. And I wanted to throw in the towel because I was tired. I didn't think, I was like, wow, if I'm taking this time away from my family, is it worth it? And my husband, of course, he was not absent, but he wasn't always present. And it was just the nature of the job. And I understood that. And there was times when I felt like I just didn't have the energy to keep going. But I would take myself to class, and my professors, whether they knew it or not, motivated me to keep coming back because they were really just vested in our success. And I finished. I graduated. I did very well in my class, and I was excited about getting a bachelor's. And at this point, so I had shifted. I'll kind of backtrack here. I shifted from wanting to be a school teacher in a public education system to getting a volunteer job that paid. That's what my husband used to tell me. You need to get a volunteer job that pays. And I love to volunteer in the community to serve other people. And I still love to do that today. But he said, you can't volunteer forever, honey. You're going to have to get a job with a retirement. So I thought I'd go into the public sector. I said, I'll go work in some type of city government or any level of government. And so I shifted from interdisciplinary studies to political science. And I intended to use that in some type of public sector, not thinking about higher ed at all whatsoever. That was never on my mind, but I knew that I was very interested in the government aspect. And I did want to work with people. And so I needed to, just kind of marry those two. So, I finished my degree and I graduated. And of course, my dad was just always just right there with me. And he was on my heart, whenever I walked across the stage. I did it for him, I guess you could say. I always felt like I was doing it for him. But he was the one who probably had the most faith in me. My mom, my sister, my brothers, everybody else did too. But it was just that one phone call. I felt like my dad told me something that I needed to hear that I would never be able to hear again. So, I just kind of thought I was done. But then I had an awesome professor who said, hey, we're bringing back the master's program. I had done away with it, and she had worked really hard to build it back up and to bring it back to our college. And I said, okay, I'm in. I'll do it. But I had to wait. Oh, waiting is terrible, right? So I graduated in December, and it wasn't until August before we could get the program going again. But I was able to take a summer course, and so it was fine. But I did have to wait that full spring semester, and I was just chomping at the bit to get back into it. So I started the master's program, and I was so lucky to have wonderful professors and just all around this people that I went to school with. It was great. And I didn't really have a desire to be in higher ed to teach anyway. What I wanted to just do is work around the government. And then I had the opportunity to be a graduate assistant. And I thought, that's great. I get to work where I like to be, which is on campus. I love to be in school. And now that I, was able to work with other professors, it was a wonderful opportunity for me. And the other part of that later on was my department chair saying, oh, hey, by the way, once you get 18 hours, we're going to put you in the classroom. And I was like, what? What do you mean you're putting me in the classroom? To do what? And she said, you're going to teach. And I was like, okay. So, took the challenge. I don't think it was even an option. I don't know that if she asked if I wanted to do it, it was just kind of like, you're gonna do it. So I had the opportunity to teach, as a graduate assistant, and I had two classes. And once I stepped foot in the classroom, instantly I knew this is where I want to be, right? This is where my career needs to start. And forget everything else that I thought about. I want to be a college professor. And that was because I had really good ones. And I had one who he was my mentor. And really and truly, if I look at teaching, a lot of the way I do teach is mirrored, from him, or, just kind of his ways and the way he is with his students anyway. But he once told us, when we were in class, and he said, if I have any advice to give you, my best advice is never leave here. Here wasn't physical in that location, but he meant never leave higher education. Stay here as long as you can. And he said it's the most rewarding place to be. And he was right. He was 100% right. So I that kind of stuck with me. And then when I went into the classroom, it made sense to me. So it's, said this test in class, and then I had the opportunity to teach. And when he said that, I said instantly, I know what he meant. It wasn't because it was an easy job. It wasn't because, it's fun, or because it's not. It can be stressful at times. There's so much behind the scenes that perhaps students don't see. But the ability to be passionate about your discipline and share that passion with other students is something that is just, it's remarkable. And I knew instantly that one day that I needed to be a college professor. And I was thankful, very, very thankful at that moment that I was selected to be a graduate assistant and have the opportunity to teach, because I knew that would help me. So I did this for 2 years. And, the master's is not easy. It's really difficult. There's lots and lots of reading, lots and lots of writing. And at some time, I probably thought, gosh, like, how many more papers can I write? I just can't do this anymore. And again, with the late nights and, the busy schedule. And it was really hard to keep the balance, right? My husband has always been 100% supportive of what I do. My daughter, even when she was younger, she knew, mommy has a lot of work to do. I have a lot on my plate. And so she did her best to try to help out when she could. And she understood, listen, when it's time for me to sit down and study, I need you to let me study. My husband, again, let me kind of come back to this. He was always supportive, but he wasn't always understanding of what I had to do. He just thought, it's school. How hard could it be? So reading and reading and reading all the time, and writing and writing and writing all the time, and him kind of seeing me at a computer all of the time, it would just kind of wear him. Like, can't you just put that computer down? You're always working on something. And so it was a struggle, and it was hard for them, for my family, because they supported me, but they didn't understand, I think, what the commitment was. So sometimes it was kind of a hectic, life, if you will. And I know I put my family through a lot, and they suffered a lot. They had to do a lot without me being present per se. When I would go out of town for family vacations, there goes the laptop, going home for Thanksgiving. And again, spending time with family, enjoying our time together and our Thanksgiving dinner together, and everybody going to sleep, and me staying up late working on assignments, grading because I was teaching, and studying. And so it was a little bit difficult. And so my family even would say, gosh, I'm so sick of seeing you with that laptop. You're always working on your school. And it was a challenge, and I felt like, even though I was there and I 100% had their support, I never felt like I didn't. I do realize now, looking back, that they gave up a lot to let me do this. Um, so going forward to working on my master's, it was a little bit easier, but it was a lot of work. And I had another professor who, she's my strongest mentor. She's always been there, very supportive, like a family would, and pushing me along the way. And she just said to me, when you're done here, I really think you should get a doctorate of education and higher education administration. And she just kind of said it to me, and I thought, oh yeah, maybe one day. Probably not. Like, I'm not going to get a doctorate degree. I'm be lucky if I make it through my master's. And she pushed me to do certain things. I had got a Bachelor of Science because I didn't really want to take a language class. I'm bilingual. I just thought didn't make any sense for me to take Spanish and pay for a class if I already spoke Spanish. So I did the Bachelor of Science, and so when I got my master's, she said, "You really need to get a Master of Arts. It'll make you more marketable. It shows that you have those capabilities." I said, "Oh yeah, whatever. I just don't want to take the Spanish classes." And she said, "Leighann, go test out of this class. You're bilingual." And I was like, "Oh, yeah, that makes sense." And she's like, "Just go take the test." So I said, "All right, well, I'll do that." And lo and behold, my husband had gotten stationed back at Fort Hood. So we were living in separate towns. These are the things we have to go through when you're in the military. And I was in school. I was not finished yet. And so my husband had to move to Fort Hood without us, leaving my daughter and I at home. So then I became a geographical single mom. So he was no longer there to help in any way, shape or form. It was just me and just her. And so we would take time and come and visit. And I said, I'm running out of time. I have to take this test. And so I went on over to good old CTC. I said, "I got to take a clap test for Spanish." And I said, "Okay, no problem." So I sat down, and it was a beautiful day in February. The sun was shining and had the windows open, and the breeze was just coming through there. And I knew what score I had to make to get 12 credit hours so that I could get a Master of Arts. And I'm a very bad test taker. I have severe test anxiety, especially in a computer lab. And so for whatever reason, they said, "Here, just sit by this window. It's a beautiful day." And I was like, "Okay." And that little, crack in the window where the fresh air came through made all the difference. And so that 4-hour test that I had just been dreading for so long, suddenly didn't seem so bad. So I took the test, and of course, I got the 12 credit hours. They said, "You got the score you need." And I was like, "Wonderful. I can graduate in May." So I was ready to graduate in May, but I did not have the language component completed yet. And so, I was getting in trouble for that. And I said, "All right, well, then I'm good to go." And so, um, finally, after 2 years, I got through the program in 2 years. Of course, I didn't have much time because my husband was no longer in the area. We come back to Fort Hood after graduation, and I wasn't really sure what I was going to do. I knew that I wanted to work in higher education. I knew that CTC was here, a couple colleges in the area, and I just thought, well, let me just have a look-see and see what's available. And there was a position that had opened up on Fort Cavazos. And I said, "Well, I don't even have my transcripts yet." I had just, graduated, moved back. They was waiting for them. And I applied, and by the grace of God, it just everything happens for a reason. All of my transcripts, came back in time, and I interviewed. And I got hired for the position here at Fort Cavazos. So this was it, right? I had reached the point where I wanted to be. I made it through my master's program, all the blood, sweat, and tears, all the sacrifices that my family made, the separation from my husband so that I could finish school was all worth it. Right now, I was going to be able to be in the classroom and teach. And that was ultimately what I had just envisioned. And I was happy. I was content. I was able to be, with my daughter, my husband, of course, in and out, Fort Hood and deployment and all those things. And so it was just me and her most of the time. And so being able to be available for her was great. And I was happy just teaching. And then, I just kind of told my husband one day in passing, I said, maybe I should look into this doctorate thing at some point down the road. I think I should consider it, but gosh, it's so expensive. And I said, "I don't know. I don't know if we really want to put ourselves through that financial stress. And then, if, again, the sacrifices that everybody's going to have to make." And he just said, "Yeah, it's something to think about." So my husband deployed, and, we're always in different time zones. So a full night's sleep it's not anything I haven't experienced, and I can't remember when. So my husband always called me in the middle of the night from wherever he was at, and it might be 2 o'clock in the morning or 4 o'clock in the morning. So one day he calls me, and I think it was probably around 2 o'clock, and he says, "Honey, I had the best news ever." And I thought he was going to tell me he was coming home early. And I was like, oh, really? What's the news? You had to wake me up at 2 o'clock in the morning to tell me. You could have waited until I woke up. And he said, I transferred my GI Bill to you. And I was like, what? And he says, I was able to get my GI Bill transferred to you. So now you can go and get your doctorate and you don't have to worry about it. Like, I'm going to cry thinking about it. And I was like, why would you do that? That is for our daughter. And I said, no, what do you mean you transferred it to me? We didn't even talk about this. And he said, no, you want to get your doctorate. And I know that you do. And I know that you can. So here you go. They said, don't wait, go do this now. And I was like, okay. And again, nothing ever happens with the amount of time that a normal person needs it. And so school was getting ready to start up. And I said, all right, well, let me just look around. And I remembered what, my mentor told me. She said, you really should get that doctorate of education in higher education administration. So I love it as a teacher, as a professor. I'm not going anywhere, obviously. And so I looked into a couple of programs, and lo and behold, right down the street, University of Mary Hardin Baylor had a wonderful doctorate of education program, an embedded dissertation, travel seminars. It was a 3-year program, and it worked with our schedule. It fit my family's needs. I could still work, and I could still, be a full-time mom. And by this point, I was already working full time. So I said, okay, well, I'll apply, but there's no guarantee that I'm gonna get in because school starts like in a month. So, maybe not quite a month. I think I had a little bit more time. But again, there goes the legwork of me trying to rush to get accepted into a program so that I could start in the summertime. And I said, all right, well, let me see what I can do. So I submitted my application. Then I had to hound my professors for letters of recommendations and, get support from my supervision here at Fort Cavazos. And so the dean and everybody had to sign off. And I'm jumping through hoops, trying to get all of this stuff submitted, hoping on a prayer that I could get it done in time. Because I kind of told myself, listen, if you don't get in, I mean, that's it. I wasn't going to, look again or try it again. And I managed to get everything done. And I remember right before Easter, I got my acceptance letter that I had been accepted to UMHB into the Doctor of Education program. So I was like, oh gosh, now I have to do this. My husband got the GI Bill transferred to me. I got accepted. And who does this when their husband's not even in the country? I was like, wow. So I go home and I tell my family, like, oh, by the way, I'm going to go get my doctorate. And everybody's kind of looked at me like, again, here we go again. Does that mean the laptop's coming back out? And I'm like, that's exactly what it means. So I need everybody's support. This is going to be a big one. And my husband comes home, and we, shortly after, it was in May. And by the time I started school, we found out that we were expecting. I was super excited about that. And here I'm like, of course, right? This is the way my life goes. So I started a doctorate program and, soon to be expecting a newborn. And I was like, I can't do this. There's no way I'm going to make it. I won't survive. But here I go. And started school in the summertime, had a 1-week seminar in Austin. And we came here and just getting into the program, 3 classes, 9 hours, lots of work. A very busy daughter. She was in high school at the time. She was on the dance team, so she was very active, very demanding, time wise. And I knew I had a lot on my plate. But school was great. I loved the program. I loved my professors. I was very prepared because when I was in my master's program, my professors really taught us to be good researchers and good writers. And so we wrote a lot, and I remembered that. But the research really prepared me for this program, and I didn't realize that would ever come, into to play, but it did. And so I was okay at the beginning of the semester, and unfortunately, I went into preterm labor, and so my husband and I lost our son. And I thought at that moment, there's no way. And it was class weekend, so which was even worse. So we met once a month. We would go to school, on the weekend, and it was very long days, very long hours, and attendance was mandatory. Like, you could not miss a class. It was just, you just don't. And that to me it was very scary, was to be late to a class for any reason, or to have to let my professors know for any reason that I was not going to be there. And so when my husband and I realized what was happening, I said, I'm not going to be able to go to school this weekend. It's, a class weekend. And I had to let my professor know that I was going to the hospital to deliver my son and that he would not make it. And she said, "Can you Zoom?" I'm like, "Okay, I'll do what I can. I'll try." And so it was still expected that you go through this program and you're fully committed. So I said, "I'll try to Zoom, but if I'm not able to, I'm just not able to." And I couldn't. There was just no way possible. Um, I don't think she meant that to be insensitive at all whatsoever. I know her very well, and she did not mean that. I think she just maybe didn't realize what I was saying to her. And just, if you can't physically be here, can you be here so you don't miss out? We don't want you to miss anything. And after, everything happened and I wasn't able to be in class, she said, "Of course, we're here for you. And whatever you need to get caught up, we're going to help you." And at that point, I wasn't even sure if I was going to make it back. You don't suffer a loss like that, and the pain doesn't go away, and it's not easy. And it was very hard on my family as a whole, on my husband, on my daughter, my mom. I mean, just everybody. And so I thought, what's the point? I could just do this another time. I don't need to finish the semester. I just need to be home and just be with my family. And my husband said, "No, you're going to go back and you're going to be okay and we'll get through this." And so he said, "You need to focus on school." This is the first, full semester. It's, I said, "Okay, I'll see what I can do and see if I can get through it." And I had really awesome classmates. I made very, very good friends that helped me and said, "We're here for you and we're going to get through it together." And we did. And they said, "It's just, a few more months and you'll be able to rest. You'll be able to rest after this." So I made it through that first semester and honestly thought to myself, I'm not going back. Like, I'll just do this later or never. And if I never went back, I think that time I felt like I would have been okay. Um, but my husband said, "No, you have to, because your daughter's watching you and you need to set an example for her." And I said, "Okay, fine." So I go back and, you know, school wise, great. It's hard. I'm working full time at CTC. My daughter's super busy, and sometimes, we would have things on the weekends, and it would be a dance competition for my daughter. And so, how can I be in two places at one time? And I couldn't, simply I just could not. And so my mom would fill in, and if my husband happened to be in the country, he would go. And so, of the 3 years that I was in the doctoral program, he was home for one year. So I did it by myself. And he supported me from afar and he did as much as he could when he was home. But it meant that I had my phone on my desk and my mom would, go live or, FaceTime me so that I could watch my daughter perform while I was in class. And if the competition was close enough, I could leave during lunch and hope that the schedules worked out where I could go watch her dance a little bit and then run back. She was on the dance team at the high school, and they had playoffs, and she was performing at Baylor at McLean Stadium. And I remember on a luncheon day, I said, "I have just enough time to, instead of listening to our keynote speaker, get in the car, drive to McLean's, watch her dance for 9 minutes, get in the car and come right back," which is exactly what I did. But I never wanted her to feel like I was not there because I had something else going on. And if we didn't have class on the weekends, I was in the stands with this much paperwork and books and my laptop, working on my assignments, researching for my dissertation while I watched my daughter dance. It was just how things were. Everywhere I went, laptop and bag in tow. And that's kind of the way it worked out. And it was difficult. It was really a struggle, emotionally for me, physically. It's demanding and it's hard. And then you don't realize, or prepare even for the competitiveness in a program where we're all friends and everybody gets along and you're all great. But then you kind of realize some of the friends that you made are not going to be your friends. And it's hard to, accept that you spend so much time with people and you go to school with them, but then at some point, there's this competition kind of develops. And it just happens. I think, I had never experienced it before, but it happened to me. And I had a few friends in the program that I thought were great friends that turned out to just turn their back completely. And that hurts. And it hurts a lot that you develop those friendships and just to see them kind of go to the wayside for whatever reason. It makes sometimes going to class uncomfortable. And so it wasn't just going to school to learn. You had to go to school with people who were looking at you differently. And sometimes it was just uncomfortable to be present in the classroom. So you have to kind of get over that. It's a lot of work. It is very rewarding work to feel accomplished when you complete something. So the challenge is not just doing the assignments for each of the classes. It's not just, the physical, requirements, just kind of your body working late at night and being away from family and having to find that balance. Um, the rest of it is great. What you were there doing it's amazing and you feel good about yourself and you're learning a lot and you have, wonderful, and hopefully, this is the case for most people, you have wonderful mentors and your professors that want you to succeed and they want to get you through this. And that's, what happened for me. My professors, I don't think would have let me walk away if I told them I'm not coming back in January. I'm certain they probably would have said, no, you're coming back. And so, um, the hardest parts were getting through things like our comprehensive exams and of course the dissertation process. And so we had a couple of these milestones that we had to achieve along the way. And the first one, wasn't too bad, but then we read 16 books that are this thick and we had to take an exam over those, and it was an 8-hour exam. And so you spent weeks and weeks and weeks preparing for that, and then you take this test and you just think, gosh, is this the moment that I'm going to get kicked out of this program? I'm not going to make it, or I'm going to have to retest. And after taking that test the first time, I walked out and I remember saying, if I don't pass this go round, I'm done. I will not take that test again. It was brutal. Um, I don't know how many gray hairs I have, but if I have any, they came from that test. So I said, listen, I just it's a one and done for me. And I told my husband, who obviously wasn't here at the time, I said, if I don't pass, that's it. I finished and it was a good run. And he said, you're going to be fine. And I remember the relief that I got whenever I received the email that I had passed that comprehensive exam. I was like, oh, wow, like I did it. So then the hard part comes in writing a dissertation, and the research was easy. The research is enjoyable. You pick a topic that you love, that you're invested in, and you find interesting, and you just dig into it. That's the fun part. And being taught to be good researchers is helpful. And so when I was in my master's program, my professors really just they taught and trained us to be good researchers and saturate the literature, all of those things. So that was the easy part for me. I'm a reader. I like to read. The writing is not so bad either. It's the other side of getting your approvals and going through the committees and the backs and the forth. And for me, it was a little challenging because I never got the you're not approved. It was approving conditions, and I had to fix something. This is through the IRB process, and then I would fix that, and I would send it back. And they said, "Well, now you have to fix this." I'm like, "But I didn't have to fix that the first time." It was terrible. Uh, it was really a rocky road, and to the point where I wasn't even sure if I was going to be able to complete my dissertation in time to graduate. Um, and I'm going to back it up because I forgot one key part here. Prior even to the dissertation process, I almost didn't go back again a second time. We had to travel. There's 3 travels that we went to: state, and then the capital, and then we went on a international trip. And so my international trip was coming up, and it was in December, and I found out I was pregnant again in November. So super excited. Obviously we had experienced the trauma before of loss. So I said, "Oh wow, this time's better because I'll be out of school. This is going to be okay." And the weekend, few days before I was getting ready to travel to China, I had a miscarriage. And so I thought, can timing ever work out for me? And this time, my husband was here and he just said, what are you going to do? What do we do? And I said, well, either I get on the plane and I go to China, going through this kind of process. I don't want to TMI anybody, or I don't get on the plane and I do not graduate in May. And he said, well, I can't tell you what to do. And I, communicated with my professors, and they too said, we can't tell you what to do. Our heart is broken. It's with you, but just let us know what you want. And I didn't have very much time to think about it because within, not even 48 hours, I was scheduled to leave. And so told my husband, and I said, I just need to talk to the doctor to find out if I can fly, if it's safe. And he said, okay. So we had to go to the doctor, and he said, you can fly physically, but mentally, are you going to be okay? Do you need anything? Do you need medication? I said, no, I'll be okay. I just need to make sure that nothing's going to happen to me in the middle of a flight to China. And he said, no, you'll be okay. Unfortunately, you just have to go through the process. So, having just suffered that, I had to go. And that left kind of a gap between my husband and myself. We didn't have the opportunity to, just kind of go through it together because I was gone for a good while, about 2 weeks, I think, maybe a little bit longer. So at that point, you kind of think, is what I'm doing worth it? Is this what I should be putting myself through? And then I, of course, beat myself up. Like, did this happen to me because I was so stressed out from school? Did this happen to me because I am working all of the time and I'm dividing time between work and my daughter and school? I'm not giving my body what it needs. Is this why this has happened? So a lot of self-doubt comes into play, and it was very hard. It was very, very hard. But something in me just said, keep going. Don't give up, keep going. It'll be worth it. So I did. And then, of course, we get to the bumps in the roads with the dissertation. And it was to the point where I was told, you are not likely going to graduate in May. You're going to have to wait. And I thought, this is not my fault. And it had nothing to do with anything that I had done or did not do. I completed everything that I was supposed to. It was, just the process kind of wasn't really working the way that it was supposed to be working, and it was not fair. And at that point, I said, all right, what do I do when I am faced with a challenge? And the answer to me is always go to the black and white. What is in the policies? What is the rules? What are the regulations? And so I did that. And I went to the policy and I pulled it out, and I had to go, to levels that I didn't want to go to fight for me. And instead of letting somebody tell me you cannot. And when it was all said and done, I had the opportunity to finish my dissertation in a very short amount of time, um, so that I could graduate on time with my classmates that I had spent 3 years with. And my struggles from, suffering 2 losses, um, from missing out on my daughter's, lives, and or trying to be there as much as possible, even if it was half of the time, even if I was walking in to watch her dance, blow her a kiss and leave. My mom was there for her always. And my mom was her cheerleader, and for the both of us, if I could not be there, she always held the phone up. My daughter could see her in the stands, so she would know that I was watching her. And I couldn't have not any way, shape, or form been able to do that if I did have my mom. She was the taxi whenever I couldn't be. She would take her, pick her up, do the running arounds and getting the last minute things that were necessary when I couldn't do that, and when my husband wasn't in town. So a geographical single parent it's a real thing. Being in the military life, we know this. But I was very, very fortunate to have the support of my mom, and just my whole entire family behind me, telling me, hey, you can do this. You're strong and you can get through it. And I graduated, finished my dissertation, and here I am today. I'm still teaching at CTC, Fort Cavazos. I teach on the main campus and online. And I don't know why I got that doctorate degree in administration. I don't want to be an administrator. I want to be a teacher. Maybe maybe one day. My husband says, "Put that degree to good use." I'm like, "I am every day in the classroom. I administrate my students." And I tell him, one day I'll be ready to step out of the classroom, and I'll be very prepared to step into any role in higher education administration because I had wonderful professors. The process was great. I think the program was amazing. I had excellent support at work. And I just kind of didn't even talk about that, but I want to tell you that everybody on my campus knew that I was going through this program, and daily, weekly, somebody would ask me, "How's it going? How are you doing?" And they could see me getting down and with the whole dissertation thing. And somebody always had the right thing to say to me that would keep me going. And sometimes I just didn't, I wanted to give up, and I wouldn't say that to anybody. I wouldn't tell anybody I just want to give up. And they would say, "Come on, you can do this, Miss Temple. You got this. We're here for you." And if it wasn't for, the people in our office just encouraging me every single day and standing behind me, I think that I probably could have given up a little bit easier. It might have made that option a little more attractive, but they stood behind me, and how could I fail? How could I let them down? My administrators were extremely supportive, all of them, and I've had a few different ones we've changed over, and every single one of them have always been so supportive and backed me 100% that the impossible was possible because of them. And so my husband, my daughter, all of my family, my coworkers, the faculty who were my teachers in the past, my professors in the past in the classroom, and the ones in the program, they are there for a reason. They want you to be successful, and they want to guide you, so you just don't have the want to give up, and you don't, and you make it through. And here I am today, Dr. Temple, right, graduate from UMHB, and it's now 6 years, 6 years ago that I finished the program, and I would not trade one single minute of it at all. So that's my story. It's a road to EDD. I
And
survived.
yes, an amazing story. And
Thank
yes, I'm
you.
one of the first people to tell you that you're an amazing professor.
Thank
So,
you.
it was all worth it, all worth it. And
Absolutely.
I know, I've talked to a lot of the students who have had you for professor, and they absolutely love you. So,
Oh,
well, that was amazing. Thank you so
thank
much for your
you.
inspirational talk.
Thank you.
We will be having another speaker, Dr. Frew. We're going to have Dr. Frew in another video. And
Yes.
so I hope you guys can get some inspiration from these amazing, amazing doctors, amazing professors that we have at CTC. And we are very, very, very fortunate to
Yes.
have you.
Thank you so
So
much. Don't give up. And thank you for allowing me to be brutally honest and open about this. It's not all, roses and sweet things. It's difficult and it's challenging, and life throws curves at you all the time, but you can do it. If you set your mind to it, nothing will get in your way, and you'll work through it and you'll make it.
you are special. Like
Thank you.
totally,
Thank you
totally.
so much. I appreciate
All
that.
right, so guys, we're going to be showing the Dr. Frew's video after this video. So stay tuned for another amazing, amazing speaker and another amazing story.
Yeah.
Thank you again,
Thank you
and
so
Dr.
much.
Temple. And guys, take her class. I hear it's
Yes.
great.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome. All right.
Bye bye.
Bye.